Does that mean you can impede a law enforcement officer?
No, but that wasn't the case on January 6th either, and they were pardoned. And just this week, they were marching down the street to the Capitol ground. Why are you shaking your head?
Because this cannot be your go-to.
But no, I'm not saying that.
On January 6th,
I am pro law enforcement.
Democrats said we're pro law enforcement. Today they say they're Gestapo. Which is it? Which is it?
Like and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell to get notifications anytime I go live or make a video. Make sure y'all join me on Freedom Chat. All you gotta do is go to the App Store and jump on Freedom Chat. Let's get into this. Let's go to some sane folks. Scott Jennings and Stephen A. Smith. I'm gonna give y'all a break from insanity. We're gonna go to some common sense folk. Let's go to Scott Jennings. We got two Scott Jennings clips. We got a Stephen A. Smith clip. And then we're gonna get to Dan Bongino, because Dan Bongino is back. And I know some of y'all mad at him and you hate him, but I honestly think Dan Bongino is a genuine guy. And I feel like Dan Bongino was genuine the whole time. And if you ain't never worked for the FBI, then you may need to listen to what the man say, because all of y'all loved him, and then as soon as he do something you don't like and you don't understand, you turn on him. All right, we'll get to Dan Bongino in a second. Let's get to Scott Jennings. I want to hear what he had to say. Roll it.
Because you heard the Secretary of Homeland Security call it domestic terrorism there. Andrew McCarthy, a conservative lawyer who writes for the National Review, wrote of that, quote, "That is the kind of hyperbole we don't need from an agency that exists because of terrorism. It was established due to the 9/11 atrocities and should presumably know what it is and is not. Whether we conclude it's an attempted murder or an attempted escape, it is not a terrorist act."
Yes, it is.
Scott, I should note, McCarthy also wrote that he thinks that what happened was probably within the scope of the law, but he didn't like what Kristi Noem went out and said there. Did she need to say that?
Probably not. But that doesn't mean she shouldn't go out and defend the ICE agent. It doesn't mean that I wouldn't expect DHS to defend their agents who are routinely under attack around the country. We've seen hundreds of car incidents and ICE operations around the country. The correct question to be asking, I think, today is, why was this incident occurring in the first place? Why is there a convoy of vehicles, according to several witnesses, attempting to impede a perfectly legitimate federal law enforcement situation? So I think arguing about the rhetoric, perfectly fine. To me, I want to get to the root cause of why there is a group of people in this country who believe it is their responsibility to drive convoys of vehicles into perfectly legitimate federal law enforcement situations. I think some of this goes back to, frankly, John, Democratic rhetoric, because that's what they've been instructed to do by the Democrats who are demonizing these ICE agents.
By definition, this is domestic terrorism. When you use acts of violence or intimidation to push a political agenda, that is terrorism. When you're domestically in the United States of America, you are a domestic terrorist. So when a person is trying to obscure or detract lawful action by ICE agents by using threats, intimidation, and blockades of vehicles, and attempted to run one of them over, you can say she turned the wheel at the last minute. It don't matter. She still made a furtive effort and she hit him with the car. If you want some of this merch, we got the coldest merch in the game, the best printers in the game. You can get you an ICE thing, or you can get you one that says "Don't F with the U.S." That's my favorite shirt. We print that right now. I can't wait to put it on and wear it. And the shirt I got on right now, pretty fire too. But if you want to go to some of our best sellers, some of our fan favorites, jump on there and get it 26% off. 26% off. So when a person is trying to obscure or detract lawful action by ICE agents by using threats, intimidation, and blockades of vehicles, and attempted to run one of them over, you can say she turned the wheel at the last minute. It don't matter. She still made a furtive effort and she hit him with the car. That's an act of domestic terrorism. Nobody got hurt at January 6th, but they call all them terrorists. They said it was domestic terrorism in a insurrection when people just walking around the Capitol taking selfies. But this is not an act of violence. All right, roll the clip.
And I think there's some details we don't know yet, and we'll have to learn more about it. What strikes me is, first of all, it's extremely sad and unfortunate that someone died. I mean, the political fighting and disagreements aside, it's terrible. You don't want people to die in law enforcement situations or otherwise. But it strikes me that we are undergoing an epidemic of political vigilantism right now. Why are people showing up in vehicles, in convoys, not just in Minneapolis, but all over the country in an effort to obstruct lawful federal law enforcement activities? This is not an isolated incident. We have had hundreds of car rammings against ICE agents all over the country. According to DHS, this lady in this car today, along with other vehicles, had been tracking ICE agents around. Why are people believing that they can drive their car into a federal law enforcement situation and that is an appropriate thing to do? I understand they don't like the fact that these agents are enforcing existing immigration law, but that's not how we change laws in this country. If you don't like a law, you talk to the politicians. You don't drive your car into the middle of a building or a law enforcement situation that's being occupied by the people who are simply there to enforce the law. If I don't like how much the IRS is charging me in taxes, I don't drive my car into the Treasury Department and try to run somebody over. I call my congressman. Political vigilantism is being encouraged by Democratic officials like the Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota, Peggy Flanagan, who earlier this year told people to, quote, put your bodies on the line, and Tim Walz calling these guys Gestapo all year. What do you think happens when you radicalize a base of people about this? It does strike me. Does that mean you can impede a law enforcement officer?
No, but that wasn't the case on January 6th either, and they were pardoned. And just this week, they were marching down the street to the Capitol again. Why are you shaking your head?
Because this cannot be your go-to.
But no, I'm not saying that.
On January 6th,
I am pro-law enforcement.
Democrats said we're pro-law enforcement. Today they say they're Gestapo. Which is it? Which is it?
No, I will say the vast majority of Democrats are pro-law enforcement. And we believe that law enforcement...
Tim Walz, he says they're Gestapo.
Let me finish.
He says they're Gestapo.
Scott,
do you agree?
Scott, let me finish. I do not agree. Let me finish. Many Democrats, and the vast majority of them, are pro-law enforcement. They believe that law enforcement should actually get the training that they deserve and they need. Hold on, I'm not done. Hold on.
You don't know about this guy's training.
Let me tell you.
Stop implying that he's not trained.
In Minnesota,
he was dragged by a car last summer.
They
call them the Gestapo, Sochi.
They're pro-law
They call them murderers. They call them Nazis.
Why is it one rule for ICE? And why is it another rule for the Capitol Police or the Republican Party? Can you answer that question?
I have the same rule for all law enforcement. I think we should respect all law enforcement.
Has two rules.
You all have select one day a year. One day a year you like the cops.
Well, look,
the other 364 days you call them the Gestapo. That's the Democratic position.
That is not the Democratic position.
Mic drop. Mic drop. I don't get to say I don't like how much taxes I'm getting paid and drive my car into the Treasury. Like he said. You don't get to do that because you don't like what they're doing. I don't like Katie Hobbs. She a trashy government. I want to say the other word, but it was a cuss word. I know it's somebody's family is watching this. I can't stand Katie Hobbs with her sorry self. Look like she disheveled every time she get on TV. A hot mess. Terrible governor. I'm not going to do nothing to her. I'm just going to vote her out. What are we saying here? Stephen A., come on the show. Let's see what Stephen A. had to say, and then we're going to cover Dan Bongino. I think we're going to get up out of here. Stephen A. wrote a clip.
I saw the video on numerous occasions. And seeing what transpired, from a lawful perspective, as it pertains to a law enforcement official, don't expect him to be prosecuted. He was completely justified. From a humanitarian perspective, however, why did you have to do that? If you could move out the way, that means you could have shot the tires. That means you could have got her a few feet away after you shot the tires. And if you were unsuccessful in doing that, you could have got her down the road. You didn't have to do that. She wasn't driving down the road coming at you 90 miles an hour. She was parked in the middle of the street. And rather than get out the car, she wrongfully tried to drive off and wrongfully disregarded law enforcement official, which is exactly what ICE is. And as a result, lost her life because of it. I'm here to tell you that at some point in time, you got to ask yourself, what damn country do you want to live in? At some point in time, we're going to have to ask ourselves that question. And I think the time is sooner than later. Because again, from a legal perspective, don't expect this ICE officer to be prosecuted. I'm telling you right now. She was in the car, Renee Nicole Good, 37 years of age, protesting, blocking off the streets. ICE wanted her to move. An officer got in front of the car. Another officer got to the side of the car, and then she tried to take off. And in their eyes, the Christy Gnomes of the world for the Department of Homeland Security, and other folks on the right are saying, yo, they consider it an act of domestic terrorism because she tried to run over an ICE officer. It's not going to be prosecuted. My point is, let's not focus on that for a second, okay? She was wrong to drive off. She should not have done that. Should have got out of her car to prove that she was not going to be any harm, or she should have asked the officer, I'm pulling over, could you move out the way, please? Instead of trying to disregard him totally to the point where you're going to take off and potentially hit him, and he moves out the way and draws his gun and shoots through the front windshield.
Hold on.
And took her out.
Stephen A., I love Stephen A. He's right about 90% of it. I think he didn't watch the video. I don't want to play. Do we have that other one? That number 2 angle? We don't have it in the system. Y'all done seen it already. I mean, he was in front of the car. And people can argue, should he been in front of the car or not? It don't matter. He could be in front of the car if he wants to. You shouldn't be driving off anyway. They told you to stop. It's a lawful order. But he clearly shot her when he was in front of the car. And she hit him. And yeah, when you look at the tires begin to turn this way, but man, when you're in the middle of this, you can't tell if she gonna turn them tires this way or that way. You can't, you tell her to stop. What is she willing to do? How far is she willing to go? And when the tires started peeling out, and I guess the officer that ended up shooting her got drugged by a person in a vehicle not too long ago.